So something that comes up quite a bit, be it with clients in the gym, clients online, friends, people I talk to, even myself, is when you pick up an injury, how do you train around it? Now, I will touch on both acute and chronic injuries, but for the main part of this, it's going to be just acute injuries, little niggles, flare-ups, pains, aches, different things like that, kind of short-term injuries, because with a chronic injury, and if there's any surgical intervention or procedures that involve surgery, physios, or a step-by-step approach, you're going to know what to do, you're going to have your plan in place, and it's up to you to do it, be it an ACL injury, a shoulder injury, or whatever. So I'm more so talking about flare-ups in this, and I just want to talk about some mistakes people make and what to do, kind of how to train around these things as well. So training around an injury, we will look into training around acute injuries and keep it simple. So primarily acute injuries. And moving on, first protocol is to stop, and this is where the biggest mistake is. So I happen to believe that the biggest mistake people can make when they receive an injury, be it acute or even chronic, is stopping totally. So stopping your training in its tracks and just going from being a regular trainer to not doing anything at all. That's the first and biggest mistake. So being too quick to focus on what we cannot do limits us to move and progress. So if you solely focus on your limitations and what you can't do, and as a result you've stopped training or whatever, or maybe there's a bit of paralysis by analysis that you just don't know what to do because you can't do your usual schedule, that you'll just stop totally, that's a huge mistake. So as I said, this is the first mistake. The second mistake is people becoming totally unwilling to train, so due to a lack of range of motion. So let's say your injury has placed, let's say you're used to a kind of split, which is a lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body. That's the way you train. Your knees have been flaring up quite a lot, which, you know, you can't lunge, you can't squat, you can't leg press, you can't kind of do anything that involves severe knee flexion, even leg extensions, leg curls, things like that, step ups. Everything's kind of sore or hard or just not worth it. So as a result, you can't do your usual set of training, so you just kind of stop completely as well. That's definitely a big mistake. So what I would ask people is to ask, what about the available range of motion they have right now? Why would you avoid that? Because if you're going to totally stop, you're not going to get back anytime sooner than if you actually trained. So training around an injury or training with an injury is going to be great for you physically, mentally, and of course, it gives you time to work on weaknesses and different things like that as well, and other aspects. So change the mindset. Instead of concentrating on what you cannot do, shift the focus to what you can do instead. So for example, if I've had an operation on my hip and lower body gym movement is an absolute no-go for the next 6 months, 6 to 9 months, concentrate on what I can do on my lower body, be it learning to walk again, be it getting some light cardio in on the bike, be it learning to get into a bodyweight squat again in the given months, etc. And then on the other hand, concentrate on your upper body and other things you can control. So this is a total shift of mindset, and it's an important one. Training with an injury is important for so many reasons because you obviously have the long-term goal of clearing up the injury, but having these little micro goals in between, and it doesn't even have to be training related. It could be, okay, my training's pretty good, but you know what, I'm carrying a bit of extra weight. I'm going to change my training, train how I can, and I'm going to really hone in on my nutrition for the next while. It can be as simple as that. So working toward a goal with some micro goals in between. Measured progression, so you're still having something to progressively overload with, to progress week to week, month to month, however you want to fix it. Mentally improving and focusing on weak points. And of course, the last bit is that the body is one piece. So I've gone over this in another PowerPoint I set up the example of a group, two different groups, and one of them had each of them had, I believe it was a broken leg. And what they did was they had one group who did no exercise on the good leg. They just kind of got about their business, rested a lot. And then the other groups who would have maybe gone through some single leg pressing and things like that, and some interventions on their strong leg, and they found that there's less atrophy on the other leg, so they lost less muscle on the other leg as a result. So the body is one piece, and that's important. For you to continue to train, it's going to have carry over to other parts of your body, be them if they're injured or not, basically. So it's definitely a good idea to keep training because the body is one piece. So let's take some really light examples before we finish up. So back pain, if you usually go conventional deadlift, this is taking deadlift specific. let's say you usually go conventional, but you're having a lot of back pain, maybe move to a sumo. If there's still stress on the back there, move to a trap bar. If that's still painful, move to an elevated version of any of them, or rack pulls. So what are we doing? We're messing with the range of motion here. So conventional is more stressful on the back for most. And what that means is you're used to pulling off the ground or maybe a few inches from the ground with the deadlift. If that's what's flaring up your back, find out where your point of comfort is and maybe pull from mid-shin, still sore, pull from below the knee, still sore, pull from above the knee. Different things like that. Work within the range you have, get strong through that range. Obviously follow any rehab you need to. And over time, once you build strength through that range of motion, it will carry on. Knee pain is the exact same. So let's take the squat. If you usually back squat, think about moving to pin squats, partial squats, box squats, or single leg variations like single leg box squats, split squats, body weight movements, things like that. So again, just because you're not able to squat doesn't mean you should stop training. It's the same for if I take a bang. On Saturday last, I took a bang on my knee in a match. Took Sunday off. Monday I would usually back squat because we have another few days till training's back on, so I'd have time to recover from the match. But taking the bang in the knees, range of motion affected. Let's get the box under me and work within a range of motion that I can. And it's the same, should be the same for anyone else. After I had surgery on my knee and my knee flexion got to 20-30%, I started building strength through Romanian deadlift through that range of motion. So again, working within the range of motion you have. And then I just threw in running at the end, perform a different method of cardiovascular work. Look, if you can't run, you can still look after your cardiovascular system. It shouldn't be an excuse to stop. And you can aim towards building strength back, letting your ligaments, tendons, whatever it may be, improve and be aerobically fit for when you get back to running. So when you go back running, it's not this huge shock that takes you forever to get fit with. So the main point is to stop feeling sorry for yourself and to keep training. So we should all learn to train around injury. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of variations of movements we can do where you can basically get the same adaptation. Again, I can't pull from the ground if my back is sore. Let's pull from a rack. I can't squat to full depth. Let's go partially, or let's go for a box squat and get strong through that given range of motion, through the range of motion that allows you to train. And that's going to be very, very important moving forward and working around an injury, especially for the mental side of things. This is a short one. I will go into probably more specific ones I've had with clients down the line, but I thought this would be a good opener to start with. So if anyone wants to get in contact, I will leave the link to my Instagram in my bio.